Warhammer 40K Boltgun teleports you all the way back to the mid to late 90s with the legendary games like Original Doom, Quake, Duke Nukem 3D, and Wolfenstein 3D with their amazing, incredibly fast-paced combat, stellar level design, laundry list of guns, and of course the beautiful 2.5D graphics. But it gives it a fresh spin with the Warhammer 40K skin on top of it. It's developed by Auroch Digital, a company many of you haven't even heard of, myself included. But I was curious about the studio that was making such an ambitious project like a classic arena shooter set in the Warhammer 40K universe. So I did some research on them, and I honestly don't know any of the projects they've worked on previously. Projects like Brewmaster Beer Brewing Simulator released in 2022, or 2020's Mars Horizon, 2019's Dark Future Blood Red States, and 2018's Achtung Cthulhu Tactics. I'm probably butchering that name too. I also learned that they have about 60 employees, which is around the same size that Hello Games is now. So Auroch Digital is not a super tiny studio, but they are not Bungie or CD Projekt Red either. And honestly, seeing that put things into a new perspective for me. It shined a new light on Warhammer 40K Boltgun, and it honestly impressed me with how polished the game is, and how closely they represent that golden era of arena shooters that basically pioneered every modern day FPS game we know now. During my 8-hour play session with Boltgun, I had to check my calendar to see if I was still in 2023 because I felt so immersed in this world. And real quick, speaking of the world and the Warhammer 40K universe that this game is set in, I should mention this now that I know nothing about the Warhammer universe. I am a total layman for the Warhammer lore, and I was just approaching this game from the perspective of an avid FPS fanboy. I love most FPS games, new or old, and in fact, I grew up on games like Doom, Quake, Unreal, Halo, and Call of Duty. So if you're like me and you know nothing about the Warhammer universe, but you enjoy shooting enemies with big beefy guns while running and bunny hopping at the speed of light, then sit back, relax, and join me as I give you my honest opinions about Warhammer 40K Boltgun. Alright, so we're going to begin with something that I feel is the most important aspect of these classic arcadey arena shooters. The movement. The movement in these games is the biggest hook. It's the part that will make most of you old school rocket jumpers feel at home. And while I can't give you the same review that Rocket Jump Ninja can because I am nowhere near that level of insanity, I can definitely confirm the movement in this game feels great. The movement felt so butter smooth that I naturally began to bunny hop my way around hallways and arenas while shooting hordes of weird alien demon dog things and guys in Fallout armor. Side strafing, bunny hopping, and flying around the arena, flicking your mouse with godlike precision all kinda came naturally only an hour into playing. And even though your character is wearing the equivalent of Fallout power armor, he's still able to maintain super speed. You're basically playing the Chris Farley of arcade shooter characters. Like, for reference, this is what your character is wearing. Look at this majestic, humongous, thick with 2 C's, manwich beefcake of a suit that you wear. You have so much junk in your trunk that whenever you jump, you can actually hear the chunky landing, crunching the ground. Same with your footsteps too, you sound like a frickin' Hulk. And when you fall onto someone, you literally squish them into red paste. And because Auroch Digital apparently loved to add subtle details, you can squish the dead bodies on the ground too. Because apparently nothing says Warhammer like taking an already dead thing and making it look like a rolled up tube of toothpaste. But back to the movement, the only feature I noticed in the movement that was like more modern was ledge grabbing. This game does feature an auto ledge grab mechanic that adds a new level of parkour to the classic genre, and I loved it. It made it feel so natural, I didn't even question it. Your character also has a very floaty jump, allowing you to make crazy far leaps, and it really opens up the map design. So when you combine the floaty jumps, fast speed, bunny hopping, strafing, and the overall fluidity of the movement, it gets a massive thumbs up from me. The developers did an amazing job with this. But now let's move on to the other most important aspects of these games, which is the shooting and the guns. In these games, the shooting and gunplay have to be rock solid. They have to feel addicting and satisfying for the player. And in Boltgun, they have this beautiful cohesion between the aggressive and chunky gameplay and the smooth movement where you feel light as a feather. Your arsenal of weapons also amplify this feeling and the aggressive themes of the game by equipping the player with these big monstrous guns that you would assume the Cabal from friggin' Destiny would use, or anybody who's overcompensating a little bit. The gunshots are head-pounding as you unleash a storm of bullets that hit so hard each bullet may as well be a .50 caliber round. And then there's the chain sword. Yes, I said that. A sword that has a chainsaw built in it. If this sword is canon in the Warhammer universe, then this just proves I need to get more into Warhammer. Because the chain sword gives off Dark Souls ultra great sword vibes, and our character must have insanely high strength stats because he just swings it like it's Loki and we're the Hulk. The chain sword is just amazingly ridiculous for the simple fact that you can lunge across the map with it, and if you keep tapping the melee button, it just keeps cutting. And I mean, being that up close and personal with the demons, the space marines, the bosses may not be the best strategy, but I'm sure some Quake god or Doom speedrunner is going to pull off a chain sword only run at some point. But returning to the gameplay though, the guns you have in the game feel incredible to use. All the guns that I found were all projectile based, and same with the enemy guns too, and they all felt super duper heavy. I mean, listen to this heavy bolter. That gun does not require a reload, it is belt fed, so you don't stop shooting until the enemy has run out of health or you've run out of bullets. And all these weapons turn enemies into giant piles of chunky spaghetti, and the combat encounters look absolutely hilarious with the sheer amount of gore and blood that is not only across the floors, but the walls too, and the ceiling. It's not gross, it's just pixels and your character is an artist. And even enemy guns or spells are projectile based too, like I mentioned, so it gives this game a bit of a like bullet hell type of feeling to it as well. And I know that they aren't the first ones to make a classic arcade shooter with bullet hell mechanics in it, but they also did it correctly. They did it so right. And the way the game slowly trickles the new weapons to the player was really great. It allows the player to get fully acquainted with one toy before getting introduced to the next one. So you get to have this fun mini sandbox of weapons to equip and just slowly broadening as you complete more levels, giving the player a sense of progression without needing to give into more modern day gameplay trends of pseudo RPG mechanics or unintuitive, brainless skill trees, or tired upgrade systems that only offer like 5% more melee damage. In this game, you don't need those upgrades. You're awesome already. And that actually blends perfectly into the next portion that I want to talk about, the gameplay. In Boltgun, their goal was to recreate that classic old-school FPS spirit, but in a modern landscape. The day and age where games didn't really have mini-maps or even regular map screens at times too. They didn't have quest journals, they didn't have color-coded loot either. Games back in the 90s and early 2000s often required a guidebook to know where all the secrets were, or how to beat certain bosses, or for any cheat codes. And they friggin' nailed this feeling. I mean, in modern games, it's considered a bad feeling if you get lost and go in circles for 20 minutes. That's usually called bad game design or bad map design, but not for these old school shooters. They wanted you to walk up to every single wall in the game, smashing your face onto it and pressing E or F to see if there was a fake wall. And the walls never looked any different than regular walls either. And Boltgun gives you this exact same feeling. I won't spoil all of the secrets in the game, but some of the spots that I had to jump to so I could get a secret power-up were devious. Or some of the walls that were literally blank walls, but I got lucky and saw a prompt to activate it were insane. The game just lets you roam around and have fun at your leisure. All of the enemies spawned like how they did back in the day too, by walking into the next room. There are some glimpses of modern rendering technology though, like looking out over the edge into a huge room or down over a cliffside and being able to see the enemies below you too, but the majority of the game really just is in tune with that classic arcade shooter feeling. And just like in Doom, you are searching for good old colored keys to open doorways, but the game doesn't tell you where they are, so you're just left to your own devices to explore and see what else you can find in the level. And speaking of levels, let's talk about level design really fast. The level design is absolutely stellar, and I want to give major special kudos to the team that put these together because these levels are perfect for any kind of playstyle. Whether you're the slow-walking detective who wants to comb through levels with caution, or you're the speed demon who wants to bunny hop and side strafe your way through levels, you're covered. With cautious rooftop parkour for the adrenaline junkies, lots of containers or rooms to loot, and even fun extra side areas that get your blood flowing because of how many enemies they just spawn in your face, these levels have so much to offer, and the scale is phenomenal. You have so much room to spread your legs and really slide across tunnels, bridges, or cliffs. You have so much room for activities. And with that space that they give you, it lets you free flow your playstyle for combat too. If you never want to go below 88 miles per hour and just plasma rifle everything, you can do that because they give you so much room to roam. But if you want to just be a bit more cautious with your combat, you have enough room to snipe from like 5 stories up, or just have breathing room between you and the entire wave of bullets flying at you every second. but also just simply looking at the maps and taking in the beauty and the visuals that they have created here is remarkable. You can tell that they had fun when they made these maps, and you can see the old school inspiration from the classics, but additionally you can see the modern day similarities too. Like some of the maps in the game look like they'd fit right into Doom Eternal or modern Wolfenstein reboots, and some areas even kind of look like they belong in like a Dark Souls or Elden Ring. Like this area here on one of the levels, it has all of these bridges and all these confusing portals. It looks like that Illusionist painting with all staircases and stuff. In fact, I want to show you something that I did notice. I'm fairly certain these developers did it on purpose because they have such a deep love for the classic FPS games that the ending room in the first level looks just like the first room in the 1993 Doom. I'm certain this was planned as an Easter egg or a reference to the king of all FPS games. It looks too similar to not be some sort of callback. So really, great job to the developers for the map designs. They are all so unique and fun to explore and just gorgeous. So now let's dive into the enemy design. In my 8 hours of playtime, I saw so many different types of enemies, it was definitely impressive. And just like with the weapons, the game slowly introduces you to new enemy variations over the time as well. Whenever the level design changes, you might actually find a new enemy type as well. It helps retain that fresh combat feeling and give the player a shoot first, ask questions later moment. You don't want to know what it is until it's dead. There are fast enemies that charge you, there are slow, relentless enemies that stay further back, there's flying enemies, enemies that hop towards you, huge towering behemoths, enemies that snipe you, enemies that just lay costly goo traps for you to avoid, and much, much more. The variety is pretty fantastic and it reminds me of experiences like Brutal Doom or Doom Eternal's level of chaos. And in fact, Boltgun has these rooms that I call corrupted rooms. These rooms lock down all exits until you kill all of the corruption, and in the meantime they send relentless armies of creatures your way. They are actually insane. Most of my deaths, in fact, from during my playthrough were from these corrupted rooms or boss fights. You will need to use the entire room and map out where all of the ammo, health, and power-ups are in order to survive. The power-ups are super duper helpful, just like in Doom, because they offer boons like mega damage, extra contentment, which is basically your armor, faster fire rate, fire bullets, infinite ammo, and there's even a weapon upgrade that works like a pack-a-punch from Call of Duty, giving each gun a new unique ability, and so many more power-ups too. With 3 different types of special ammo that you can find, and 7 different types of overall power-ups that you can find in the levels too, they are a must. You have to keep your eyes open for these for sure. Like if you play on the hardest difficulty, you will certainly feel the pain of not finding the mega damage in time, which is something that I wanted to cover as well. The difficulties in this game. There are 4 difficulties in this game, ranging from easy, medium, hard, and nightmare. I, of course, chose to play on nightmare because I ain't no bitch. So far, the most difficult fight I've seen is either the corrupted rooms because they feel like Slayer gates from Doom Eternal, or the Lord of Change boss fight. That fight alone took me about 45 minutes to complete on the hardest difficulty. The mechanics were crazy for that boss. He had a staff that could turn the entire arena around him into a bullet hell kind of game. He could also summon these purple rings on his chest that would literally siphon your entire health away in seconds, and the only way to stop it was to get out of line of sight. He also had some basic magic casting as well, and meanwhile all of that's going on, the entire room fills with these flying blue things that are nightmare fuel in themselves, and if you kill those flying blue things, it spawns other waves of other enemies, so the best way to kill him was to just not kill the enemies at all. They're like a distraction. It was just crazy insane, and whenever I was finally done with it, whenever I finally beat it, you can actually see the excitement in my mouse when I was just wiggling my everything, just excited. So if you are looking for a challenge, you will definitely find it within Warhammer 40K Boltgun. This is not a baby game, not at all. And the story is there, I suppose. Okay, look, let's be super real for a moment, okay? These boomer shooters, as they have been cleverly dubbed by people, don't give a about story. It's there. It exists if you really want to follow along, and it might be even pretty good too. I don't really know. But the game is named after a gun that's the main gun of the game. I don't expect a Witcher 3 level story from a game like this. Just like in a lot of these classic boomer shooters, it was there if you wanted it, but it was usually just go here, kill them, destroy that, and it. But from what I gathered, your character is a part of an army of top tier soldiers that were made specifically to fight for the Emperor. Your character loves to taunt the enemies with his loyalty and passion for the Emperor, and if you idle, he starts reading his scripture guidebook to being the best super soldier ever for the Emperor. But lastly, I want to rattle off some super cool extra features that I did notice the game actually offers. So the game doesn't have like a settings menu that would win an award or anything, but it does offer a few settings that would make a lot of you happy. For example, this game offers an invulnerability mode, so if you want to feel like a walking Hulkbuster running around laughing in the face of death, you can do that. It also has settings to change the amount of pixelation the game has, as well as settings to adjust the amount of retro the game's color palette uses. And finally, the game offers you a toggle switch to unlock all of the levels instantly. So if there's a level you are stuck on, just flip that switch and skip it. And then once you beat that level, if you want to turn it off and continue progressing naturally, it keeps your progress as well. So overall, Warhammer 40K Boltgun is amazing with the high-octane, crazy, murderous fun times as you bunny hop and chainsword across the arenas or into the sky. It's a glorious power fantasy just like Doom, Halo, or Wolfenstein, where the only thing they fear is you. I definitely recommend this game to anybody who is familiar with these classic FPS games or boomer shooters, or those of you who love the Warhammer universe. You get a surprising amount of synergy between this game and the creatures or people of the Warhammer universe, and you get to see them all pixelated, with the high contrast style before turning them into goop. The only thing I'd love for them to add in this game is either like a mini-map in the settings or like a regular map screen. Nothing too fancy, just an option to really plot your way around the maps would be great. As for the technical side of this game, for like performance and stuff like that, this game runs butter smooth. Looking at the graphics, it's not going to run your computer into the dirt, it's not going to make it overheat and explode, it's not going to fill up your VRAM with like 20-something gigabytes. I didn't even have my frame rate counter up. I didn't want to frame peak this game and like really like nitpick what frames dropped where. Like, I didn't need to do that. It just felt smooth the entire time. And as for like bugs and stuff, I didn't notice any audio bugs, visual bugs, gameplay bugs, nothing. Like the AI was fine, they were super smart, they kept throwing fireballs at me like the imps in Doom. Overall, for the technical side, it was fantastic. So I think for $20, you honestly get your money's worth. This is a game that knows exactly what it wants to do and then sets out to do it and does it really well. It's not trying to be an RPG, it's not trying to be an MMO, it's not trying to add any fancy modern day gameplay mechanics to help fill it in and, you know, add stuff to it. Like, no, it literally just goes for that classic boomer shooter, arcade arena shooter vibe, and it friggin' nails it. So I think this game is fantastic for $20, and you're definitely going to get your money's worth. They say it's about 8 to 10 hours, but I was already 8 hours in and I had only beaten chapter 1, so your mileage may vary. You might get 8 to 10 hours if you're on a lower difficulty, but on the hardest one, I was 8 hours in and I had only beaten chapter 1. So bear that in mind. And I really quickly wanted to give a shout out to the sound team over there at Auroch Digital, because you guys friggin' nailed it. All of the guns, the enemies, the magic, the footsteps, the jumping, the whatever, all of the sound design is just phenomenal. It's all crunchy and aggressive and meaty and powerful in your ears. Like, I'm a bit of an audiophile to the extent of I love having movies or shows or games with great audio design and great sound design and things like that, and this game does not disappoint. The music in the game, the scoring of the game is great too. They have this tone to it that's good, but it's not Doom level. I'm not going to sit here and listen to the soundtrack of Boltgun in my free time like I do with Doom. The soundtrack never disappoints though. It's no Doom, but nothing really can be, so you can't really compare it to that. So overall, sound design, music, everything is fantastic, and good job. But other than that, this game is fantastic, and I applaud Auroch Digital for being able to make such a fantastic game. And thank you to Focus Entertainment for supplying me with a key to play this game. This review was not sponsored in any way, these are my honest opinions about the game. So thank you all so much for watching. If you are new here, consider hitting that subscribe button on your way out. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to drop a like on it as well. It helps me out greatly. But have a great rest of your day. Thanks for watching. Bye, guys!